Thanks for clicking on the video. Like, subscribe, and share if you find this useful or interesting. All right, so we've got our blob, our lump, our blob, our thing, and we want to go to this. How are we going to do that? Well, first, we should know a little something about surfboards. I think it's really important to understand a little bit about the field you're trying to contribute to. So a while back, I did a search on surfboard shapes, and I ended up liking a website here called Greenlight Surf Supply. See, I had saved from a long time ago. I was doing this in 2023. I did a quick look at this. I was working on something a little bit different back then because I was going to make a very complex system that actually allows you to create the V on the bottom and invert the shape. And I had this fancy surface preview of all the sections, but I didn't go very far with it because this is just a hobby and I have bills to pay. But today, we're going to do something more reasonable. We're going to use our 3 layouts of 4 sections. We're going to do the best we can with those curves and see how close we can get to a reasonable surfboard. What do I mean by reasonable? Is that it should have some kind of relationship to how surfboards are actually designed and made. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we need to understand where we're making compromises. So if we go to the website for Greenlight, and by the way, I don't have permission to use their material. I hope they don't sue me. I actually hope they would sponsor the video. That would be awesome. But if someone from Greenlight sees this and doesn't want me to mention their website, please let me know, and I will redo this video with no mention of you guys. Because you can see the information I'm going to use is available from many sources. But I like to attribute where I'm getting my stuff from. So here they have this on greenlightsurfingsupply.com. They have this design guide, and it's organized. And so we can learn about the foil shape. We can learn about the deck, and we can learn about how it's typically defined. And you can see here, I'm getting a piece of information. They're measuring things from the middle. We'll use that knowledge, right? We'll want to base our design so that the central plane is in control, and then we'll be able to say, hey, there's this much difference on this side and this much difference on this side. I'm a mechanical engineer, by the way, so this is how Silk is intended to work. You should be able to put real numbers on things. So here we have some examples. They even give us some numbers, which is really nice, so we can get in the ballpark of something real. Okay, so that was the overall shape, the foil. And then they give us some information on what the vertical edges on the side are how they are composed, right? Soft edge, hard edge. And these are things that our blends do well, right? We'll be able to, by having more or less blending, we'll have a hard edge or a soft edge. That's nice. And it looks like I'm going to be able to do it with one curve for the time being. Now, as you get more complicated, you may say, well, you actually need more surfaces to do some of these things in detail, right? But for now, I think that having 2 curves on the bottom, 2 curves on top is going to give us a lot of power to do our overall shape. We could try to make it with just one, but as it happens, we would run out of control over the things we want. So I'm just going to go right off the bat now. Let's make the top face in 2, the bottom face in 2. So we'll have 1 curve for the deck, 1 curve for the bottom, and 1 curve on each side to do the rails. And since we have 1 curve for the rail in the back, 1 curve for the rail in the middle, 1 curve for the rail in the front, we'll have a lot of control over this shape. Now, I could do more, right? I could add 1 more section right here dedicated to just controlling the end, and I could add 1 more section up front dedicated to just controlling the tip. But I'm not going to do that for this exercise. We're just going to see what we can do with our lump. And with our lump, I can use the cap face right here and shape it like a tip. And yeah, I can use the back face right here to control the tail. On this example, I had left the tail completely flat. Maybe we'll keep our tail flat. Maybe we'll give it some more shape. But you see that just by rounding, I can get a lot of shape out of this. So I think we're going to be okay for the overall shape, the outline. Let's see, rocker and foil, tail rail, bottom contour. They don't really talk about, see right here, I go back up top on this page. I'm going to use two curves to do this outline. You see, in the case of you start at a tip, you end at a tip, you could try to do it with just one, right? So instead of using a cube that is 1 by 1 by 2, you could try to make it out of just a 1 by 1 by 1. But the general case, you look at these shapes, it's really helpful to say, well, I'm designing this side or I'm designing this side. Having two curves is a good starting point. You might even want 4 curves, right? You might want a curve here, a curve right here, a curve right here, a curve right here. But I think 2 is going to be pretty good. So that's what we're going to do. But now we understand the trade-offs we're going to face as we're designing this shape. So here's the overall shape. Here's the foil. Here's the rails. And see, these rails can get pretty complicated, right? We would need an extra surface if we wanted to do that. We could do this entire piece here with one curve blended, but to do this, we would really want an extra curve right here, even though it's completely flat. And then we would just blend here and blend here. Something on the bottom, we're just going to have 2 faces. All right, we're going to have 2 faces here and here. That means for each cross section, we only have 1 curve to control the shape. So that will be a limitation. For example, we can get pretty close to this shape with a single curve, but on surfboards, there are more cross sections. Like you can have a very different cross section in the middle and on the sides. So we're going to be limited, right? If we wanted to do this double inside curve, right, and these complex shapes here, we would need at least 2 curves here. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curves in our basic cross section. So how would we do that? Well, we would go kind of back to the beginning, start with a 5 curve layout for the section, make 3 copies, rebuild the whole thing. But today we're going to make, I say today, I mean, in this series, to make this board, we're just going to have a relatively simple bottom. It will have some sculptability, but not full detailed V. We'll come back to that later, right? If we want to do this, it's obvious. We need 2 curves here and a blend. Or we could try to remake the whole thing with 4 curves here. We could have 1 curve here, 1 curve here, 1 curve here, 1 curve here. We might get away with it, but we would have very little control over how we shape this face right here. So I think if we want this bottom V, we should keep our top as a flat curve and 2 sides, and then we should split the bottom into 2 pieces. I think that's more reasonable. Okay, so thanks to Greenlight for sharing this detailed information. You can use this, you can use any other source you want. Okay. So when we convert this object, here's what I'm going to do. I will want to take this whole shape and flip it down, because I will want to, from the top view, I want to see the overall shape of the surfboard. I will want to have the middle section be on the YZ plane, so it's in the middle of my model, and I will have this piece here, this section here will be down here, and this section here will be up here. And then I will pull the layouts to the position they need to be, and then I will add all these curves in. So that's what our workflow is going to be. And I showed you where the the concept of the curve comes from and how it relates to an actual surfboard. All right, catch you next time.